Well, let me tell you something, brother.
Snort, snort, snort.
Kogan. Drip.
Snort, snort.
I got the drip. Go.
I received a $20 tip from 1 Minute Man. He says, "You're being 40 hours in means nothing in Baldur's Gate 3. Oh boy. Let's play your animation first. Let's get you on the leaderboard and let's see what he has to say. I really had no concept that 1 Minute Man was so heavy into Baldur's Gate 3 until we started playing it. Okay. Okay. Understanding Baldur's Gate 3 and its myriad of minute details is like taking a college major. 100 hours in, you're going to feel the same. Tip, make sure you have a light source for the Shadowlands. Interesting. Good news is, I have a light spell that I cast on myself. So, I should be fine, right? In that regard, I should be able to just cast light and then I'll be able to see, I guess. No, and that's very interesting. Because one of my criticisms of the game back on Wednesday when we were playing it is that why am I 40 hours in and the game feels like it wants to be so complex that I literally have to learn something new every single time that I fight. Like, I even said to the audience, I said, am I ever going to feel comfortable fighting in this game? Because it seems like every time I think I am and I know what I'm doing, the game will literally throw another angle at me.
Imagine that DSP's complaining again because he actually has to pay attention to a game and learn its mechanics. It's kind of ironic that he's sitting here complaining about how he hates that the game is continuing to introduce new mechanics, when he's the same person who will constantly complain that a game always feels samey and they're not innovating, and that he has to do the same thing over and over and over again. To me, it's just an indicator that they're trying to keep you engaged and that they thought throughout the game that they want to do different things and show you different things. I understand that sometimes it can be frustrating when you just want to shut your brain off and play a game, right? But Baldur's Gate 3 has never been that game for DSP. I don't know why he thinks that all of a sudden it's going to be. And he's sitting here complaining about them introducing new mechanics, but he hasn't even left Act 1 yet. Don't get me wrong, Act 1 is very long, but it's only the first third of the game. I think during the first third of any game, they're still introducing different mechanics that you can play with. And the thing that he is specifically complaining about right now is unique to an area. That happens in games all of the time. It doesn't matter where in the game it takes place. If there is an area that is special and it has unique properties, then they just introduce the mechanic when you're there. And all of that is even before addressing the fact that DSP didn't understand almost any of the mechanics for the first few hours of the game. And when I say few, I mean probably about the first 15 to 20. So he's sitting here being upset because he has to constantly learn new mechanics just because he refused to learn them earlier when he was supposed to. So now it might feel like it's all coming at him at once simply because his chat is finally explaining some of the things that he's missed.
So I'm supposed to just know that in the world of D&D, that undead creatures survive when you kill them and get like a saving roll, and they auto-revive with 1 HP, but then after they auto-revive, they lose a turn. Like, how would I have known that? Did the game ever explain that? No.
I don't think that the game expects you to know that, but you are not specifically punished for not knowing that. You might experience it one time and wonder why that happened, and then you realize and figure it out. That isn't exactly a problem. You just figuring something out on the fly, which is, according to you, how you like to play games. You like to play them on the fly and learn them as you go, is not a problem. That's how it's supposed to be. I try to be as prepared as possible in real life, and when people ask me why I do that, I tell them it only takes being in a situation one time for you to realize that you don't ever want to be there again. So you prepare for it. And that should be exactly DSP's takeaway when he experienced this for the first time. He should have experienced it, he should have figured out why it happened by reading the in-game menus, and then utilize that knowledge in later encounters. And that in and of itself is a very rewarding experience. Applying your knowledge that you've gained through experience and allowing it to make you a better player should be rewarding. It's part of playing a video game, if you ask me. But DSP is the same person who's incapable of analyzing his own footage to realize his own mistakes. So it really shouldn't be a shock that he doesn't want to learn and that he isn't interested in continuing to learn new mechanics. He just wants to shut his brain off and play the game. In fact, he doesn't even want to do that. He just wants to shut his brain off and his chat play his game for him.
Am I supposed to literally every single time that I run into every single person and item in the universe, should I be going into the the stats of it and studying the stats of each character for 5 to 10 minutes before I even consider making a move. Because it's funny, already people are complaining I take too long to fight. But then when that happens and I get taken by surprise, oh, well, you didn't look at their stats first. Yeah, because you already said I take too long to fight. Right?
So he's actively deciding to not read the character sheets in-game because his audience is saying that he takes too long in combat. But I think that's just because he takes too long to do everything in the game. It's just like his decision-making skills are compromised in every single facet. Because I can just see him now opening up the character sheet for every single minor enemy and realizing that they have some sort of weakness, and then cycling through every single character's inventory and every single character's moveset to try and best utilize that weakness, when the reality is most enemies can just be defeated like normal. Especially because he's not playing on the hardest difficulty or playing in honor mode. He's just playing on normal. But again, this specific example that he's giving are about the undead reanimating upon death. You see it happen once, you click on the sheet, you read it real quick, you realize exactly what happened, and then you plan for it in the future. It really is that simple. There's no point in being frustrated about it and, oh my god, the game expected me to know. They really didn't. You just have to be able to adapt.
So that's what I mean. Like, I feel like that game, here's the thing. If you're someone who's totally into that level of time investment, tabletop RPGs, simulations, and you want to spend insane amounts of time, I get it. But I have the right. I absolutely have the right to criticize it. I'm someone who for over 15 years has played every major video game and franchise. I can put this into perspective from who could be considered more of a commoner's. And it is, I feel like I'm a commoner. I'm not some expert. I'm a commoner. I'm a gaming commoner, right? So when I'm playing this game and I'm fighting and all of a sudden there's this ridiculous stuff going on that I just don't understand because it's never explained, I have a right to criticize it. And listen, you don't have to think that my criticism is valid, or maybe it's interesting to you to hear an outsider's perspective. Because I tell you right now, as an outsider, Baldur's Gate 3 is not accessible. It's too complex. The combat takes too long and it's too boring. A common person would not just jump into this game and enjoy it. So how did it win Game of the Year? Because the games media voted on it.
But that's just outright false. Plenty of people who have never played this genre of game, have never experienced D&D, and have never been interested in a game like this, entered the game, found it fully accessible, and loved it. Had nothing to do with the game's media this time, DSP. It won viewer's choice for a reason. It's because an absolutely massive amount of people loved the game. And every time we do one of these videos and you go on one of these rants, there's a bunch of people in the comments telling me how this was their first experience in this genre, D&D, again and again and again, and they all say the same thing. The game is completely accessible, that you're just an idiot and you're incapable of learning from your mistakes. You're incapable of learning new things. He says that he feels like a commoner, even though he's been playing video games for a profession for 15 years. But I think the word that's more apt for him is actually casual. But even then, I think that casual gamers have more passion for video games and learning new video games than DSP does, which is saying a lot.
That's why, because the games media like this game for many different reasons. Narrative, the choices and things you can do in it, probably romance, probably representation, probably a million things. And by the way, that's not me knocking the game. I'm telling you, from a commoner's perspective, trying to play this game is too difficult and too complex and very annoying. So I can tell you, probably the vast majority of people who bought this game probably will never finish it.
As someone who doesn't finish most games that I actually enjoy, I don't think that finishing a game is an accurate representation of whether you liked it or not. I'm a busy style individual, as I'm sure many of you are as well. I don't get around to finishing most games despite how much I like them, because there's always something new around the corner, and I'm trying to have as much fun as possible in all of my free time. Of course, I'm not saying that the games I was currently playing aren't fun anymore, but I'm interested in trying something new when I have the time, which means that a lot of things get put on the back burner. And sometimes while they're on the back burner, the flame goes out, and I don't really realize because I've got my hands full with other dishes at the time.
They will play it for a few hours. Maybe they'll get 10, 15 hours into Act 1, and then they'll get to a point and they'll be like, this is ridiculous. Like, I'm 15 hours into the game. I feel like I didn't do anything. Why does every fight take an hour? And every time I think I know what I'm doing, something goes wrong. You know what I mean? Even for someone like me, and here I am 40 hours in, I haven't lost a fight yet, right? Everyone's saying, I don't understand why Phil's criticizing the game. he literally is doing well in every fight. That's not the point. You understand? That's not the point. The point for me when I'm playing a game is that eventually I want to get to a point in said game, especially an RPG particularly. I want to feel like I can lean back and relax and say, finally I'm at home. I know what I'm doing. I'm comfortable in my own boots. And I can play this game and know what I'm doing and have a good time. And here we go. Here's a nice session of Baldur's Gate 3. Boop. And that's never happened. Every single time I boot this game, here's a ton of things you didn't know. Here's new lore. Here's new gameplay mechanics. Here's new saving roll shit. Like, what are you talking about? Will I ever just play it and get it? No.
So DSP just wants them to stop introducing more of the lore and more of the world and more enemies to him. He wants to fight the same enemies on loop every single time that he boots up the game so that he can win and the credits can roll and he can say that he beat Baldur's Gate 3 when everyone said that he wouldn't. But I'm just not quite sure why you would want that out of your RPG. Why would you want them to quit introducing new enemy types? Why would you want them to stop introducing interesting mechanics that play right into the world that you can utilize in the future? I mean, he just said it. The answer is because he doesn't want to think anymore. He wants to just sit back and be comfortable. That's why he's still on level 1, because it's comfortable on level 1. Not having to be better, not having to learn, not having to strive to do anything more than you're already doing is exactly what DSP loves to do every single day. So it's no different when it comes to video games. He wants to get good at a video game in the first 5 to 10 hours and then absolutely coast through the rest of the game all the way up until the credits. Because that's what makes his ego feel good. That's what makes him the most comfortable. DSP is a prime example of why people say that you have to step out of your comfort zone, because if you don't, you wind up being something like a DSP, never wanting to experience anything new, always trying to stay exactly where you are and never actually bettering your situation. It's just kind of crazy that you can gather all of that information about DSP simply by the way that he complains about Baldur's Gate 3. I'm not saying that you have to love the game, but his complaints specifically show a lot about who he actually is. Because if he were to just say, the combat's not for me, man, I don't like it. If he were just to say, I'm not interested in D&D's lore and I don't want to learn about the world anymore, all right, cool, whatever, that's up to you. But to sit here and say it's too complicated and that they should be shallowing up the game because you simply just don't want to learn, it's silly to me. Especially because there is an easier mode that he could be playing on if he doesn't want to think about all of those mechanics as much as he should be. If he wants to just play the narrative and move on with the story, he should absolutely drop the difficulty. He should put his pride aside and just play on easy mode.
You won't. Someone even said last time, you'll literally never, ever even have a feeling of being at home until your second playthrough. Because then you've at least seen everything in the game once. So when you're playing it the second time, you can at least try to remember the first time you did it and then do it better the second time. I don't know how I feel like about that. You know, I don't. Maybe for that's good for a lot of people and not for everyone though.
But it's not like they're rapidly swapping mechanics out for one another. You play through the combat, you learn a lot of the combat mechanics, and you figure out how they work. And as you go, you might experience a few new things here or there, you add them to your arsenal, and you continue about your way. And it'll continue to happen every so often through all of the encounters that you go through. Because some enemies have unique traits, and some areas have, again, unique traits that you can utilize. It's not like they're completely flipping the base mechanics on their head every time you turn the corner. They're just slowly adding more and more. And it's really up to you whether or not you decide to use them or remember them. But DSP is so goddamn concerned about playing as optimally as possible that it actually hinders his gameplay. And that's why he's got chat holding his hand. That's why he used to read guides back in the day. Because he won't allow his ego to be hurt that way by looking bad at video games online in front of his audience, or he has a schedule to keep, dude. He's got hot new video games to play. He has to be as done with the game as possible as soon as possible. Usually I'd say he has to be done with the game as soon as possible, but he's putting Baldur's Gate 3 on hiatus as new games come out because there's no way in hell that he's beating the game and he refuses to wage quit it yet. Notice I said yet.
So again, you might argue, well, I don't understand. How did it get Game of the Year? Because journalists vote on it. I'm telling you. And of course, well, I don't understand because it also won the Gamer's Choice. Yes, because of height. Yes, because of all of that, not that stuff that always builds up around these games, correct? Like, that's what happens with this stuff. I have a really hard time believing that this game is purchased by a bunch of people who've never played this style of RPG before, and they're playing it and beating it and loving it. That really would make, I'd be shockingly, like, really, that would just blow my fucking socks off if there was some status about that. Like, I would bet if you actually were to look at stats of how many people bought Baldur's Gate 3 as a result of it winning Game of the Year, and how many are actually beating it, it would be like 10%. Most people who bought this game bought it because of hype. They heard so many things about journalists loving it, or the hype on the internet about it, and they went and bought it, and they started playing the combat. They're like, what the fuck is this? And they never played it ever again, right?
So of course DSP can't believe reality unless you show him some sort of impossible to gather stats to prove him wrong. Even though the conclusion that he has came to is based entirely off of speculation and him guessing. But I started to leave the chat on the screen during these videos for a reason. It's because sometimes when DSP says things, you can actively see the dents rebelling in the chat and telling him that he's wrong. I'll move over to the other side of the screen so that you can actually see them, because there is a couple on screen right now on this exact frame. G-Ternal says, it got Game of the Year because it's an amazing game, dude. Hockey asks, why are we going back to that narrative? Angel of Vitality said, BG3 is genuinely good. But Stinkman, shout out Butt Stinkman, I guess, I want different monsters to have different abilities in my RPGs, and that all makes sense to me. Even the regular in chat, Lyciver Soul, said because it's good. And I always think that it says a lot when the Dents are actively telling him that he's wrong, because it takes a lot to make the Dents tell DSP that he is in fact in the wrong. But of course, just because DSP doesn't like something means that your common man doesn't like something, because he obviously knows what the average person enjoys, right? Because he's just like them. You know, we're all professional video game streamers who haven't had a job in 15 years and also only leave our house once a week. So of course we all have the same interests. Sound good? Sounds good to me. And by the way, Cat agrees.
Here's the thing. Elden Ring was kind of the same situation. But the difference with Elden Ring is that Elden Ring legit had mechanics to carry people, right? Like Elden Ring has the summons. So you can summon, what is it, Ash summons or whatever they're called. So you can always summon help in a fight, and those that could carry you the whole game. This game doesn't have any carrying mechanics, right? Then again, I'm playing on standard difficulty, so I don't know if I played it on easy. It has an easy difficulty setting, right? I have no clue what the difference would be with the easy settings. So maybe that's where I'm off base. Maybe if you play it on easy, it negates 90% of the complex shit and it feels more like a simple RPG, and then maybe it's easier to play. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know.
So apparently it's just like Elden Ring now. BG3 is pretty much the Elden Ring of RPGs, guys, come on. But I gotta appreciate DSP being honest and showing some actual love for something that he appreciates in video games, which is the ability to absolutely use a crutch whenever you find something difficult so that you don't actually have to get better. And yes, I understand that summons and that are put into the game specifically for you to use them when you need to. And this is not me putting anybody down who uses summons, but obviously it's going to make the game easier if you have multiple people fighting the same boss. But he acknowledged himself that Baldur's Gate has an easier difficulty that he could be playing on, which would probably solve most of his problems, like I said earlier. If he really wanted to just turn his brain off and play the game, he could absolutely lower the difficulty. And again, there was people in chat saying that they wouldn't mind if he just wanted to turn down the difficulty and actually have fun. But his ego won't allow that, just like most things in his life that would make his situation so much better. His ego is holding him back.
But again, here's the thing, and it's funny because when I try to be honest with people about this game, and I'm telling you, I don't dislike it. I actually am enjoying it. Why would I keep playing it like this if I didn't enjoy it? I am enjoying it.
First of all, we gotta hear that voice crack again, because I'm not gonna let that slide.
I don't dislike it.
But that's such a dumb question. Why would I continue to play a game if I don't like it? For the money, stupid. That's why you do everything on your channel. I don't know why you're even pretending to ask the question. Everyone can see what motivates you behind the scenes. You're very transparent. It's clear as day. You're only interested in the money and pretty much always have been. The only people that you're continuing to fool with this charade is your dents, but I guess that's really all that matters. As long as they're convinced that you actually care, even though it's not true, that's all that matters.
But there's levels of frustration that I'm experiencing, and I will share those with you when I feel them. Oh, well, then you say you just don't understand it. You must. Why do you play a game you hate? Don't play. Like, what are you talking about? No. You have to stop fanboying for a minute, because that's what it is. If you feel ultra defensive about Baldur's Gate 3, can I be honest with you? You didn't make the game. You don't get paid every time a copy of the game gets sold. The devs don't know who you are. They don't care. You can stop. You can remove yourself from their ball sacks now. Okay? They don't give two fucks if you kiss their game's ass or not. It doesn't matter if it's your favorite game of all time, people still have a right to criticize it. Even if you don't agree with the criticism, you should respect the criticism if people are being respectful of what you like. Stop being a fucking defense force of the game.
Of course, DSP had to mention ball sacks, he just couldn't help himself. But I actually agree with DSP, you should allow people to criticize things that you like, as long as the criticism actually makes sense. But unfortunately for DSP, everything he says is just so goddamn stupid. Yes, let people have their opinions and enjoy things that they want to enjoy and dislike things that they don't want to like, that's fine. But I think that DSP is an active detriment to gaming as a whole, and nobody should take into consideration or value his opinion at all. And I don't say that lightly, but time and time again, DSP proves that he is the worst kind of consumer, and pretty much if he enjoys something, you should probably steer clear. Look, it would be one thing if, again, he just said, the game isn't for me, I don't like this aspect, this isn't really my taste, I don't like this, that's completely fine. But to sit here and pretend that the game is bad because you don't like specific things is why people hate what you say. To sit here and pretend like the average person isn't going to be able to understand Baldur's Gate 3 just because you're too regarded is an insult to all of these other people, in all honesty. It's not the game's fault that you don't want to engage with the mechanics that it's putting in front of you, you know, like you typically do with a game.
You have to stop that mentality. Remove yourself from the testes, because you're latching on to those hairs, those ball hairs, and the devs are like, oh God, the weight of the world on my sack. Like, what is going on here? Just release yourself, because no one cares that you're the biggest fanboy of this game. No one. You're never going to get a golden medal mailed to your house. You're not going to get a trophy like this. No one's gonna mail the world's biggest Baldur's Gate 3 fan trophy to your house for you to, oh, look at me, I defended the game against everyone who said something possibly critical of the game. No one cares about you. You can stop now. Really. People have a right to say things negative about a game, even if it won Game of the Year, even if it won Viewer's Choice Game of the Year, even if it's your personal favorite game of all time, right? No one gives a fuck.
But the exact same thing can be levied at you, DSP, so this is just a huge waste of time. People are allowed to talk positively about the things that they want to talk positively about. Nobody cares about your opinion. They're allowed to tell you why your opinion is stupid and that they think that you're ignorant. The proper response to people telling you that you're just bad at the game and should shut up because you have bad opinions is to ignore them and move on and do what you want to do, rather than doing whatever this god-awful cringe segment is. And I love that he continued with the scrotum grabbing segment. Just cringe all the way around, dude. Shut the hell up. These clown mode regard segments just get under my skin sometimes because it's such a huge waste of time, and the absolute smugness that he does them with, man, I just can't stand it.
So stop being a fanboy. And that's not just of this game, it's of anything. Nintendo fanboys, Xbox, Sony ponies, shut the fuck up. No one cares about your dumb, biased opinion because you think it's the best thing ever. Here, you could sit here and go, oh, everyone, thank you. I'm the best fan ever. No one cares about you. Stop it. Allow other people to say intelligent things, because what you're saying is not intelligent. If you're just blindly defending this game, and anytime someone says, well, I think there's something that possibly could be improved, but no, I am the #1 fan and you are wrong, and I'm going to shove my trophy up your ass for criticizing Baldur's Gate 3. Grow up. Okay? Grow the fuck up.
And of course, DSP is the arbiter of what is and isn't intelligent points, because he's just a shining example of a high IQ individual. I mean, all of the brainiacs that I know filed for bankruptcy and spent $50,000 in 1 year playing a WWE mobile game, and he says that people are just blindly defending the game. But when people tell him that he's wrong, they give him specific examples. He says that, oh, the average person isn't going to get into this if they have never played this genre before, or they've never experienced D&D, and then all of those people in the chat tell him the exact opposite. They tell him, this is my first experience, blah, blah, blah. We already went over this, I'm sorry. He says that the game doesn't actually explain a lot of things to him, but you can go back in his footage and see how the game is specifically designed in a way to teach him key mechanics, and he just refused to take in the information. That's the explanation, DSP. You just weren't paying attention. I'm just trying to say that it's not blindly defending a game. If you can pick apart every single argument he has against Baldur's Gate 3 and explain and even show how he's incorrect, and it's just personal preference at the end of the day, which I'm going to reiterate is totally fine if he just doesn't like the game based off of preference, but he's acting as though the game is objectively bad because of his preferences.
And for the record, that's my Tekken 3 trophy from the 1990s, and I'll be putting that out when I play Tekken. Of course I will. Why wouldn't I? Right? Anyway, I hope you guys understand my criticisms. It's fine if you disagree, but please respect them, and please understand there's a reason why I say that, because I do feel like this game, sadly, has been so overhyped by the media that there's so many people who are going into it with this mentality that it's like the best RPG ever, blindly just believing that, and you go to play it, and you're like, what am I playing? Why is the combat so slow? Why is there always this crazy mechanic I don't understand, and I get screwed because of it? And it does, for me, that genuinely takes away from my enjoyment of the game. When I can't understand something because it's another new mechanic that's been introduced, and we're 40 hours in, that's not fun. That's annoying. That's like, okay, another one. I've had enough. I just want to play the game now. When do I get to play? You don't get to just play the game. There's always something new to annoy you. Oh, great. I don't want to become, just because I'm playing Baldur's Gate 3, I don't want to have to become the ultimate scholar of D&D, and it seems like that's what they're doing. Like, you have to be the ultimate scholar of D&D to do well in this game. Well, sorry, that wasn't my intention. My life's intention here wasn't to be the #1 D&D fan on the planet. I'm never going to play D&D outside of video games, I can tell you that. Like, I'm never going to do, like, a real D&D thing. So I guess that's life, right? I mean, what are you going to do?
And I just hate that so much. He is so insistent that you have to be some sort of D&D scholar. You have to know everything about D&D to play Baldur's Gate 3, when it is actually explained and designed for a casual person who, again, has never played D&D before in their life to get into the game, experience it, and fall in love with the world. That's one of the many reasons why it won Game of the Year, because it was so accessible to so many people and introduced them to a world they never thought that they could get into. But I'm here to hit you with another double feature. So again, big up Snort Hogan for both clips in this video. I really appreciate it, brother. And of course, it's double intro time. You know I gotta.
Well, let me tell you something, brother.
Snort, snort, snort,
Kogan. Drip.
snort, snort.
I got the drip. Go.
Oh, by the way, and this is a big one. I totally forgot about this. So, after all of our conversations, all right, over the last week, I have changed the titling of the videos on DSP Throwback. What I've done is exactly what we talked about. So basically, a little blurb to describe what's going on in the video, then the part number, and then the game. So for example, Marston's epic journey begins. Part 1, Red Dead Redemption from 2010 PS or Xbox 360. That's what the title is. A little preview for tomorrow. Part 2, I've just been deputized. Part 2, Red Dead Redemption 2010 Xbox 360. So that's what I'm doing. I'm now doing the titles the way that you guys recommended. Apparently you guys are saying everyone does this. So for Final Fantasy 13, I did it as well. Some examples of the titles on that playthrough, because I changed them all. Part 1 is Finally the Classic Run Reborn. Part 1, Final Fantasy 13. Part 2 is The World's Worst Leader. Part 2, Final Fantasy 13. Part 3, Most Annoying Final Fantasy Kids Ever. Part 4, It's the First Boss. Part 5, Is This a Rom-Com Now? Part 6, Crystal Lake and the War Mech Boss. Part 7, The Gates of Antiquity Arrival. And this morning, Part 8 was Garuda Surprise, Snow versus an Army.
So in case you didn't watch my last video, this is a conclusion to that. His new title and thumbnail style is a direct result of fan feedback, of course, because DSP cannot even design his own thumbnails or come up with his own titles without people telling him how to do it.
That's actually the titles. And then, of course, this is like the part number in the game. So again, this is me going directly off of your feedback, doing that. If you think those work, let me know. All right? If you don't think that works, let me know.
Why are we asking for feedback again if you took in feedback the first time to actually make the decision? I just did something similar. I changed how I did my videos. I added a few things, changed a few things up, and I asked for feedback because I didn't ask anybody beforehand. I just thought it was something that I wanted to try, and I did. But DSP specifically asked for feedback beforehand. He asked what people wanted to see, so him doing it should be the end of it. He doesn't need to hear about how much they like it because they already told you that that's what they would prefer. The only reason I could see him asking for feedback again is because he wants people to tell him that he's doing such a good job and that they love the changes. DSP, you're so cool. It just comes off like he's trying to get his ego stroked, which is just disgusting, dude. Just do the things and shut up. Make the content that the people want to see and move on.
I might actually start experimenting with that on this channel too. But the question is, if I start doing it right now, will people be upset? Like, what if today, right now, with Baldur's Gate 3, I start titling my videos like that? Like the first 3 today, I just title, it's the description first, and it's a short description, part number, game. Would people be upset if I do that? I don't know. Ponage 101 says, I like these new titles, they sound better. And Angel of Vitality says, it's short, sweet, and to the point. Right? Fed Roger says, this game sucks, part 10, Final Fantasy 13. Well, I mean, that would be very to the point, but then I don't know if anyone would watch if I actually said that.
Wait, DSP, when we were talking about this originally, didn't you say that making a title so that people wanted to watch it was clickbait and against everything that you stand for or something like that? Are we just completely flip-flopping now, or what's up? Because to me, if that's how you really feel about the game, that would just be you being honest, dude, and you're the most honest person on YouTube. You tell us all of the time. You would obviously never compromise your own morals to make extra money or get more views.
So, right? So, again, I'm trying to improve. I'm trying to listen to your feedback. I'm trying to be better. Please let me know how all this is working, okay? Things will only get better if I get the right feedback so I know what to continue to do.
There's just something about saying getting the right feedback as if there's wrong feedback, which when it comes to DSP is absolutely true. He does think that there is wrong feedback. If it's negative or you tell him that he's doing a bad job and you'd prefer something else, that's bad feedback, dude. He wants to hear how good he's doing. I don't know, there's just something about the way he said it that every single time I've heard it, it sticks out like a sore thumb that he needs the right feedback. But you gotta love this sudden shift after 13 years of being an online content creator that DSP is finally trying to improve, or at least pretending to try and improve. Because in all honesty, I think that it's just a ploy. I think that it's a tactic so that he looks better in the Mike Klum documentary, and everybody is pretty much on the same page about this. It's just too coincidental. It's too suspicious. There's no reason why he would have all of a sudden had a change of heart and realized that he wasn't doing the things that his audience has been asking him to do for practically ages. And with DSP, there's always some sort of scheme going on. He's always playing some angle. You just have to try and figure out which one. Because despite all of the sarcasm I gave to you moments ago about him being honest, he is easily the most dishonest content creator that I can think of. He is a schemer and a scammer through and through. There's no doubt about it.
And here's the thing, I love it. The people that all these years, they always say, oh, he's lazy. He's the guy that sits back and does no effort or anything. It's like, have you looked in the last few years of all the effort that I've put in? My entire setup's different now, right? We've got better visuals, better quality. I've upped my bitrate on both my stream and my videos. Better backgrounds that I change every month, trying to put effort. Better animations, right? Now we're trying to spruce things up on the channels. Better thumbnails, better titles. You know, got a channel of the throwback content. That's something you've asked for all these years. My wife wants to be part of my content again. How can you say that things are stagnant? How could you possibly, with any kind of a piece of factual evidence behind it, say that I am lazy and I'm not trying to improve my content for the better?
Well, you started that ramble with saying that people were calling you lazy and saying that you don't put forth any effort, and transitioned to talking about how your channel is stagnant. I'm not going to sit here and argue the definition of stagnant with you, DSP, but what I will argue is that you are lazy and are not willing to put in any effort. So let's address all of these points one by one. I will replay all of them and we can talk about them all individually because I got the time today.
My entire setup's different now.
Your entire setup is different. That I'll agree to. But different doesn't necessarily mean quality to any extent. It always looks like you just have miscellaneous shit in your background and it looks unprofessional as hell. It's ugly as all get out and nothing makes any sense. It just looks generic and boring.
Right? We've got better visuals, better quality. I've upped my bitrate on both my stream and my videos.
And I'll address these 3 things all this one because they essentially all boil down to better quality, it look gooder. Any upgrades to DSP's stream as far as his equipment has gone is because of fan donations. It's because they are specifically going out of their way to make sure that his stream is upgraded and looks better. He doesn't get any brownie points because people are sending him shit so that he can do things. He's still lazy, he's still not putting forth the effort to even buy the things himself. His fans are figuring out ways that they can improve his stream so that they will have a better experience. If you need an analogy for this, allow me to switch clothes, because again, I got the time today. And for all of my audio style listeners, this is the part where you might want to actually look at the video because I'm debuting new art. Shout out Darksea to Phil. Okay, now that I've changed clothes. It's like if you had a sandwich shop, right? And the owner was talking about how they put in all of this effort to make sure that you have a quality dining experience. And that they're totally not lazy because there's been improvements to the restaurant as of recent. But when you look behind the scenes, you realize that all of the booths and tables were provided by customers and literally donated because they were tired of sitting on top of milk crates. The owner was bragging about how high the quality of meat is. But when you look behind the scenes again, you can see that all of the ingredients were donated by the customers because they just wanted a sandwich and it to be high quality and the owner wasn't providing any of it themselves. In this scenario, you can very clearly see that the owner deserves none of the credit and honestly shouldn't even be running the business. All of these people who are supporting and donating these things should just go elsewhere. They should find a different sandwich shop because not only would they have a better experience, but they wouldn't have to do what is essentially free work for the guy, or rather the owner in this analogy. But that's the sandwich bit. I hope all of you enjoyed the art, and if you'll allow me, I'll go change clothes and get back into the normal location.
Better backgrounds that I change every month, trying to put effort.
I've just realized that earlier when he said that his entire setup is different, that he did mean generally like the whole thing instead of talking about the background. So just take everything I said about the background and just think that I said it here, please. Thank you.
Better animations, right?
Yes, better animations that, again, you did not create and didn't pay for and were instead donated to you by some dent. And I'm kind of even wary about calling them better animations because they're usually just your face swapped onto a bunch of different things and it's usually pretty lazy looking. It's not exactly unique or interesting the 100th time around, so I don't know why we keep doing it.
Now we're trying to spruce things up on the channels. Better thumbnails, better titles.
Again, that was entirely your fans' idea, and they basically handheld you through the entire process. The only thing that you do now with that is continue to do what they told you to do. You're so lazy and not willing to put in any effort that you couldn't even come up with better titles and thumbnails for your own videos. In fact, you're so lazy you don't even design your own thumbnails for your content. Those improved thumbnails are being done, again, by another dent who is doing it entirely for free and receiving no credit.
You know, got a channel of the throwback content. That's something you've asked for all these years.
Oh, would you look at that? Another thing that you're not actually responsible for other than just uploading it. Because again, a dent is doing all of the work, quote unquote, behind the scenes for you so that you can just upload it and make money. Can you tell me again how this isn't being lazy? Can you tell me again how this is any sort of effort on your behalf? Please.
My wife wants to be part of my content again.
And while this isn't always the case, I do think it is in this specific instance, but having her on stream just means that you don't have to perform or talk nearly as much, which again makes you lazy. Like I said, it's not always the instance when you have a co-host or you have like a collab stream or something where you're both being entertaining. But when it comes to Kat being on stream, she's just kind of the spectacle and DSP just has to, well, he just has to wrangle, if you're picking up what I'm putting down. But that's all of the individual points that DSP brought up addressed individually. I explained exactly how all of those things still make him lazy and show that he's not willing to put the effort into the channel. But go ahead, DSP, why don't you tell me why I'm wrong? Why everything that I just pointed out and said is not true, entirely false, and just a detractor narrative? Go ahead.
I don't know how you could unless you're a disingenuous piece of crap just trying to create drama for the sake that you want to put out content on the internet and make money on me, right? That's about it. I can't think of another way you could really justify it, all right? So
just like I said, there's totally not real criticism about DSP. It's all just made up drama nonsense, and he did nothing wrong. Sound good? Sounds good to me. And by the way, of course, Kat agrees. I'm
doing my best, all right? Now, let's see how the year goes, right? Let's let's see if things stay the way they are and they're positive and they're fun. I hope they are. I hope that all this continues and you guys will continue to check out the content and support it and enjoy it and give me feedback. It is literally all these improvements that I have done. I just want you to understand. Literally, every single improvement I've done is because of you and your feedback. That's why I need it. This constructive feedback is greatly appreciated. Sitting here and saying toxic, nasty stuff constantly gets nothing done. But actually giving me constructive feedback in a positive way, you see I'm making these changes now, right?
Thank you, DSP, because that was part of the entire point. You're unwilling to actually think about your content and figure out yourself what would make your content better. Instead, you need every person to individually tell you specific things that you need to change in order to make better content for them. Because you're not willing to put in the effort to even think about your content from anybody else's perspective but your own. It's not too often that you see a content creator who is genuinely so uninterested in the content that they put out on the internet. That's why it's so obvious that you're only in it for the money, because you don't have any passion for the videos that you make. But that's gonna do it for today's video. Of course, another shout out to Snort Hogan for both the clips in this one. I really appreciate it, brother, as always. Big ups to everybody who watched the video, especially if you made it this far. Thank you, thank you. A special shout out to all of the members. You guys are awesome. I'm really appreciative, so thank you so much. Hopefully I'll catch all of you guys in the next video, but until then, make sure that you check out other Detractor content and dive deeper to that Snortex.